What up, Long Beach? Welcome back to your home for everything local sports. It's JJ.
And Mike, and this high school football podcast is brought to you by Naples Rib Company, the perfect place to cater your next team event.
Without question, our game of the week. It's a no-doubter living the life of boss players. All eyes on Vets. Friday night, 7:30 on Fox Sports. It is St. John Bosco against Bishop Gorman from Nevada. And for my money, these are two of the best three private high school football teams out here on the West Coast. The third, obviously, being De La Salle.
Well, and for Max Preps' money, they're two of the top three high school football teams of any kind anywhere in America this year because they've got Bishop Gorman number 1 in the country. That's pretty much unanimous. You see the Gales atop pretty much everybody's rankings. Bosco number 3 in the Max Preps ranking. So the biggest game we've had in Long Beach and probably all of Southern California since the 2001 sold-out meeting at Vets between De La Salle, as JJ mentioned, and Long Beach Poly. That was a number 1 versus number 2. This is a number 1 versus number 3. And also a rematch of a thriller in 2014 that the Gales won 35-31 in Las Vegas when the teams were also number 1 and number 2 in the country. So huge national championship implications, huge crowd expected, over 20 college recruits. It's going to be real fun.
What's crazy about this game is that 10 years ago, nobody really knew who either of these guys were. St. John Bosco and Bishop Gorman are now pretty impressive, but back then they weren't. Since then, Gorman, 7 straight Nevada State championships. St. John Bosco, obviously the back-to-back Pac-5 finals and that national championship in 2013.
Well, Jason Negro was, as a coach that nobody really knew all that well, was at that 2001 Poly De La Salle game. Kind of two ships passing in the night. The Jackrabbits sort of just at about their pinnacle, and Negro here 15 years later has Bosco in a similar place now where they're playing for national championships. They're trying to win CIF and state championships every year.
Yeah, and he's specifically taking his team to these games to try to get them prepared for those other games down the road like Modern Day, Centennial, and then, as they hope over there at Bosco, De La Salle at the end of the year. And Negro really wants to make sure that when they do get these opportunities to play in these big games, that his players are soaking everything up.
Back to 2014 and be able to watch Cordell Brodus and Tate Martell and Lindsay and Alize Jones and Josh Rosen was on the field and Wyatt Davis and all the guys that we had on that team. And it was just really great as a coach to sit back and be able to look at the talent on the field and know that you're going to see all these guys playing on Saturdays and someday potentially on Sundays. So as a coach, it's just exciting to have an opportunity to be surrounded by so many great players and so many great coaches and in an environment that we're going to have, whether it's in Vegas in 2014 or here at Vet Stadium in 2016. It's just great to be able to be a part of it and to provide our kids with this opportunity and allow them to play in a game like this is something that they're going to remember for a long, long time. And and a kid said it the other day in practice. This is some of the stories you talk about at your wedding. And it's great for me to be able to know that I'm helping these kids provide those memories.
So excitement everywhere. Gorman, number 1 everywhere. As we said, they are 2-0 right now, riding a 42-game winning streak. They've got 9 returners on defense and 7 returning starters on offense. So they are loaded yet again with their leader, Tate Martell, at quarterback.
We saw Martell last year when Poly was in Las Vegas to play Bishop Gorman, obviously the top dual threat guy in the country, an Ohio State commit and someone who's probably going to be playing football for many years to come. He looks like that new style quarterback. He can make all the throws, but he's also comfortable running his own read. He's comfortable taking the ball downfield himself with his legs. He's got plenty of weapons outside of him. Both these teams, if you go down 4 or 5 receivers deep, you're looking at guys who've got the skill to play on Saturdays. A great running back in Biagio Ali Walsh, yes, relation on the Ali. He's going to be going to Cal. He's got the smarts as well as the speed. But talent, like we said, wall to wall, sideline to sideline, both these teams just totally stacked up with big names.
Well, I mean, think about these numbers. 3-year starter is Martell. He's completed 58% of his passes over those 3 years for over 5,550 yards, 76 touchdowns to just only 8 interceptions. And oh yeah, he also averages over 6 yards per carry and has scored 18 touchdowns with his feet.
The funny thing about this, it's going to be 2 quarterbacks kind of looking in a mirror. Real Mitchell for St. John Bosco, we know he's got the legs because he was the fastest sophomore in America last year, over 100 meters. But he wants to be Tate Martell. He wants to have 5,000 yards passing as well as the ability to run it. But as a junior, he's got 2 starts under his belt as well as some championship game experience, whereas Tate Martell, you and I were joking, I feel like he's been at Bishop Gorman for 10 years.
He's the Chris Winkie of high school football, man. He's been there forever.
The guy plays in Las Vegas, and this will be the 3rd time I've covered him.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, the Ollie Walsh stats are just as impressive as the Martell stats. Last year, he rushed for over 2,400 yards, averaging over 12 yards per carry, 33 touchdowns, and an average of over 160 yards per game. So this Gales team comes into this season obviously highly touted, and they did not disappoint. They took on Cocoa High School from Florida, number 8 team from the state of Florida.
You said that the name of the high school is Cocoa?
Yeah, they were not in love after this game, I will tell you that much. Just stomped them and then took care of Cedar Hill, the number 1 team from the state of Texas, ranked number 10 nationally by Max Preps, 44-14. So St. John Bosco has their hands full, specifically on defense. And the Bosco defense is something that we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, really the last couple years with the way it seems like every year they get faster, even as they've got big names leaving, they somehow upgrade. And we've seen that again, and they're perfect through 2 weeks. They put up 2 donuts. Obviously, they would love to put up a third this week, not very likely to happen, but I think we're seeing a young defense come together very, very quickly.
The talent there is just unreal, and yes, you mentioned it, Mike, speed kills. They've only allowed about 300 total yards of offense in those first 2 games against St. Xavier and La Mirada. Against La Mirada, they had all but 1 starter record a tackle, and right now 13 different Bosco defensive players have more than 5 tackles this season. They are just so good everywhere. Junior strong safety Stephen Blaylock has really emerged as one of the better cover guys on that defense, and he talked about the trust that this team has built at practice on Wednesday, and he was just saying that they didn't really trust each other, they didn't really know each other. It's hard to know each other without playing games together, but after these first 2 games, he says that trust is really building, and you can tell because at a strong safety position, you have to trust your defensive back and seal that edge and make sure things don't get bounced outside, and when you see these guys flying around, it does look like they trust each other.
Well, and that's really what they need because they certainly have the speed, they certainly have the size up front. So once you sort of put it together and make a cohesive unit, that's when they get scary. And obviously 2 shutouts to start the season is a great way to start doing it. I think if you're a Bosco fan, though, you feel pretty good about your defense. You know that Bishop Gorman's loaded. You know they've got guys on offense. But what you're looking at is how is your offense, which has a lot more new pieces, going to do against their defense. Real Mitchell, as we said, 2 starts. Now has to go up against the number 1 team in the country in front of probably 10 to 12,000 fans. It's going to be a little bit different. Unlike St. Xavier and La Mirada, Bosco's first 2 opponents, Mitchell is not just going to be able to run by these guys because they do have legit speed all over the field as well. To me, the onus of maybe the whole game falls on how can Mitchell pass the ball because they're not going to let him run wild. And the same thing will be said for Tate Martell. Bosco's not going to let him run for 200 yards, but Tate's proven more, obviously, that he can throw the ball downfield. We think Real Mitchell has that talent and that skill. We just haven't seen it as much. He certainly had some throws that didn't look entirely crisp in the first 2 weeks. Those little things in blowout wins against teams like St. Xavier and La Mirada can turn into big things on 3rd and 7 against the number 1 team in the country.
It's all about the start for St. John Bosco. They had a slow start when they went to Las Vegas in 2014. They've had 2 slow starts against Corona Centennial in the last 2 Pac-5 championships. They have got to at least start even or ahead of Gorman here in the first half of this game. That first quarter is paramount. They have got to have a nice start.
Bosco will. I mean, we saw, you mentioned 2014. They started off slow, furious rally to only lose that game by 4 points, but you really don't want to count on that. It's like you said, if you can get into the locker room in a good situation, up a little bit, tied, down by just 1 score, then you can say, okay, settle down, let's go out here and have some fun. But I think you're absolutely right. If they come out, they're holding, they're committing unnecessary penalties or something, they could put themselves behind the 8 ball. And, a guy like Tate Martell, it's hard to imagine him messing it up in the 4th quarter. You'd like to give yourself a little bit better of a chance to win it in the second half.
Bold prediction, Bosco wins if the Bosco defense scores a touchdown. Agree or disagree?
I agree, and I actually would generally take Bosco. I just think, we can talk all we want, and I just mentioned how experienced that Gorman team is, but it's a little bit different being in Long Beach in front of 10,000 fans. I mean, we've seen that. De La Salle handled it great in 2001, but it took them a little while to get used to it. It's just most high school kids, in volleyball or basketball, some of these other sports, it's a little different because they play more club stuff in front of big crowds, right? If you're one of the high-level kids. Football players, you can be as great as you want in passing league, but you're not going to play a game in front of 12,000 people. Suddenly now you're at Vets, it's loud. I just think Bosco is going to settle into that a little bit easier. They know the facility, they know the area. It's going to be mostly their fans who are there cheering. So I'm curious to see what happens, but I think you're totally right. If the defense steps up big, they're going to get it done. I would say if Mitchell completes more than 55% of his passes, I think they win as well.
If and buts, candy and nuts. That's why they play the game Friday, Vets, 7:30. Like we said, you can find all the coverage right here. But that's not the only game going on in Long Beach this week. We've got a great local matchup over at Wilson where the 2-0 Bruins are taking on St. Anthony Saints. The Bruins in Division 6, St. Anthony in Division 10. But these two teams feel a lot closer together because it is the 7th Street Showdown, and a lot of these kids know each other.
Well, for sure, especially as St. Anthony has become kind of the Moore League island of misfit toys, that when guys transfer out of the Moore League, they can't go to another Moore League school. Now they go to St. Anthony. They've got a ton of kids who are from Wilson, Lakewood. We've seen a lot of those guys move to St. Anthony. Neither team has lost a game. St. Anthony had a huge blowout win last week. Wilson, as you mentioned, 2 nice victories to start the season. But it's not only the players who know each other. The coaches are familiar with each other, too. Mario Morales from St. Anthony, Mark Ziegenhagen at Wilson. These two coached together at Wilson. Ziegenhagen was Morales' defensive coordinator for a number of years. They also played together at Long Beach State. So a history with the coaches, plenty of history with the players, and a little bit of a history of what could be a budding rivalry because this was a great game last year.
Yeah, and it was an entertaining game the year before that, too. I mean, obviously you've got the Saints trying to step up and take on a bigger program, but yeah, the Bruins want to make sure they build a fence around that part of Long Beach, and they get those players instead. Also on the local docket, 2 first-year head coaches going head-to-head. Mike Christensen at Lakewood High School, Ray Fenton at Los Alamitos High School. Fenton picked up his first win with the Griffins last week, and Christensen still looking for his first victory back with Lakewood this week.
These are 2 hungry teams. Both of them have a proud history, but obviously the last couple of years has not been as kind to them. Certainly never thought we'd see a day when Los Alamitos was just hoping to get back into the hunt for a Sunset League title. Same thing with Lakewood. They were such a strong number 2 in the Moore League for so many years and winning that Moore League title in 2009 during their streak of CIF semifinal appearances. But both these coaches know about the history of the schools because Fenton coached against Los Al for a number of years. Christensen coached at Lakewood for 11 years from 95 to 2006. They both really want to get him pointed back there. And I think similar to what you said about the regional importance for both talent and pride between Wilson and St. Anthony, I think we see that almost times 10 with Lakewood and Los Al because here's 2 teams who both probably kind of feel like we have to win this game, in order to rebuild that fence and kind of reassert ourselves as an important team in the area.
Previews for the rest of your Long Beach High School football Friday night are at presstelegram.com right now. And obviously, after the night is done, you can find all of the coverage right here at the Press Telegram and GazetteSports.com.
Thanks as always to all of our sponsors, including Naples Rib Company and Papa Lucci's, a great place to eat down on 2nd Street.